Get ready as Fighters Inc. presents 5 rounds in the FightMad Zone with the biggest names from the world of combat sports. Hosted by Joe Long. This is the FightMad Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the FightMad Podcast, hosted by myself, Joe Long, from Fighters Inc., as we go forward to our 25th year anniversary in the combat sports sector. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button on the FightMad Podcast, and also give us a follow at Fighters Inc. on all social media platforms. Today's guest is my first female guest. She is the classical warrior. We are keeping it boxing this week. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the FightMad Podcast the former IBO super-welterweight champion of the world, my sister from another mister, the one and only, from Scotland, Miss Hannah Rankin.
Thanks, Joe. Nice to be on here.
Lovely to see you.
Yeah, no, it's been ages, actually. I haven't seen you in such a long time, and it's really nice to catch up, actually, even if it's via podcast.
I know, it's bad, really, because you are one of our official coaches at Class UFC Gym Woking. So if anyone's ever in the Woking area, make sure you come and check out Hannah and her coach Noel. And no, it's lovely to have you on Hannah. I know you've been very busy recently doing commentary for the Fight Zone. Talk to me about how that's been going.
Yeah, so it's not something that I ever thought I was going to end up doing, but actually got asked to come on board and do some of the commentary with Fight Zone. It's a new streaming platform for basically for showcasing British boxing talent right from the small hall scene, all those shows, up to higher level as well. So yeah, no, it's been a really fantastic opportunity, and actually I'm finding that I'm really enjoying it, and it's definitely something that I think I'd like to pursue further, and hopefully will be there for me at some point when I actually retire from boxing full time. But yeah, no, I'm actually really enjoying it. You get to be a bit of a geek about the sport, research people, watch some stuff about them, check out their records, check out their opponent. And that's always quite interesting because some of these people I've never heard of before. So especially from the guys' side of it. So yeah, no, it's been quite good fun.
I think there's a lot more work to it than people actually give it credit for. I mean, I know sometimes when I'm talking to Bisping, to Michael about UFC gigs, and he's like, "Oh, I've just got to close off for a few hours and actually study." There's a lot more studying that goes into the commentary, which people recognise, right?
Yeah, no, I'm actually very lucky. Obviously, I'm kind of getting mentored by Dominic McGuinness and Glenn McCrory. They're regular commentators that throughout the fights, and you know, those guys have been giving me some really good insight into it. And actually, Dom's fantastic. He always does like loads of research and everything, and I'm learning that, you know, you just need a couple of hours to go through those people so you've got them in your mind, and you have notes that you've prepared yourself, but it's good to just go through everybody and make sure you know where they're from, make sure you know their record, know what kind of rumours there are about them, and if there's any sort of fun facts as well, because the audience do like to actually hear a little bit about the person themselves instead of just them as the fighter. They want to know a little bit about what makes them them. So it's good to find that little nugget of something interesting about them, something a bit different.
Most definitely. Just like you, coming from a small village, Luss, in Western Scotland,
yep,
and becoming boxing champion of the world. I suppose it was very unexpected. And also coming from a classical music background.
Yeah. Two different things.
Two different things, but two nuggets, which, you know, probably someone tuning into yourself, watching you fight for a world title, probably least expect.
Yeah, definitely. You know, a lot of people are very, very surprised when I say I'm actually classically musically trained. You know, that's where my degrees come from. I trained at the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland and then came down to London to do a master's at the Royal Academy of Music here. My principal study is the bassoon, which is kind of like it's a big woodwind instrument, and it plays sort of the bass parts in the orchestra. But yeah, it's my first love. Music's always been my first love. It's something I was introduced to at a very young age. My granddad used to be a music teacher. My mum and her two sisters were musical, so it was naturally assumed that me and my two sisters would also get involved in music. But I was the only one that carried it on for an actual professional career. But yeah, people think there's got nothing in common with boxing. But actually, for me, it's all about the performance angle. You know, it's that same sort of adrenaline and excitement when the lights go down the stage and you can't see the audience, and then the conductor puts the baton down. That's the exciting moment. And it's the same thing when you get in the ring and that bell goes, all eyes on you, and you've got to perform. So, yeah, they do have some similarities for me, for sure.
Brilliant. Well, we're going to come on to music a bit later with one of our rounds. As you know, we do 5 rounds in the Fight Mad zone. Are you ready to go into round 1, Anna?
Absolutely.
Seconds out. Round 1.
Let's do this. So, from a young girl from Luss in Western Scotland, obviously, you're not in the big smoke. You know, you probably wouldn't seen as many scraps as someone from, London, Manchester, Birmingham, I doubt. But what was Hannah Rankin's first ever fight memory? Was that at school? Was that in your Taekwondo club? Because I know you've done martial arts previously to boxing. Yeah, where was your first fight memory and where?
So my first one's definitely got to be when I was doing Taekwondo, probably around about the age of 9 years old. So I was quite young, but my mum definitely put me and my sister in to do Taekwondo to stop us fighting each other. Because 3 girls have a whole farm to run around on, but we just want to take lumps out of each other as kids, So I think my first memory for myself was being in my Taekwondo classes, watching the sparring, and then when I first competed for the first time, I'm watching other young people actually compete in Taekwondo, and it was definitely a huge experience for me, and it was really exciting. As soon as I was watching it, I was like, I can't wait for that to be my turn, when I'm getting in there and I can showcase what I'm going to do really well. So yeah, it's definitely in Taekwondo for me. And I think a little bit later on, when it came to boxing in my, because I started that much later in my life, I'd actually been to see some white collar fights and things like that to support people before I was actually getting involved in boxing. So, yeah. I
remember.
Yeah, exactly. So, but again, I had that same sort of feeling, the same sort of excitement. I was like, I want to be in there. I want that to be me. I want to be, getting in there, getting my arm raised, and beating somebody one-on-one. Like, that was the whole excitement of it. And I've always enjoyed a good fight. I always have. It's just, it's very satisfying, and also, you learn a lot about yourself, and you also learn a lot about the other person and maybe things that you could do better. But it's one-on-one. You've got no one else there to help you out. So you're either good enough or you're not.
So first fight memory was Taekwondo. And what sort of age was that, Hannah, when you started to go, or your first fight memory of an actual bout? And can you remember what happened in that bout?
Probably about 10 years old. And obviously in Taekwondo, they used to match you height-wise. So I was definitely matched because I grew really quick as a kid. So I was a giant when I was quite young. So I was getting matched with people who were probably a little bit older than me. And I remember fighting this boy. We got paired up and we were competing against each other, and it was one of those big massive events where you got the grading done, you got sparring awards, there was awards for high kick, there was awards for everything, and it was a kind of a showcase day, and it's probably the first time I'd ever done anything like that, and it was really exciting. But also, I got in trouble for committing a foul in the fight, but the foul came off actually because he landed a really good shot on me, and I just gone straight back in. And I remember feeling really bizarre, having to kneel the other way, because I think I kicked him in the nuts, to be honest. So I was definitely in trouble. I couldn't figure out why I was in trouble, because obviously I was like, well, should have been in the way. But yeah, it was. The other thing I remember is that my mum was very vocal in the audience, and my dad had to tell her, had to hold on to her because she wanted to get down there and get involved. And that's definitely something my sisters have now, watching me fight as well. They want to get in the ring when I'm fighting. So yeah, no, it was a very exciting day and lots of things happening, but I really, really enjoyed it.
Brilliant. So round one's out the way. Taekwondo, your first ever fight memory, goes in the books, in the FightMad books. We're going to move on to round two.
Seconds out, round two.
And this is a tough one, especially for competitive athletes like yourself, and industry insiders. Mauricio Suleiman last week, how many people he's dealt with and how he picked out his favourite fighter of all time was beyond me, but his response was unbelievable. So we're going to go straight to it. Hannah Rankin's favourite fighter of all time and why?
So for me, it absolutely has to be Arturo Gatti. And the reason that is, he didn't always win. And sometimes there was losses, there was draws, there were big nights. But he was always exciting to watch. He was a real performer in the ring. Whatever happened, it was an entertaining fight to watch. And people always wanted to come and see him. Even if win, loss or draw, people always wanted to come and watch that. And I, as a fighter, would love people to feel like they want to come watch me fight because it's going to be exciting. No matter what happens, it's going to be exciting. It's going to be all or nothing in there. And I'm going to leave it all in the ring for people to see whether or not I win or lose it or I get a draw or whatever. Like, Arturo Gatti used to be like that for me. That's how I view him. And I also love his style of boxing. He's a warrior. He's aggressive, but he's also got some amazing skills. And some of the fights he's been in, probably, my favourites to go back and watch. I obviously love him and Mickey Ward, the Trilogy, definitely a favourite of mine. But I like him versus Rodriguez as well. It's one of my favourite fights.
Okay.
He's losing at some point, and then suddenly he pulls out the bag, and it's just, I can always go back and watch his fights and feel excited about them. And so that's what makes him an exciting person for me to follow in the fight world, and probably my favourite fighter. Yeah, definitely my favourite fighter.
Brilliant. I mean, the Mickey Ward Trilogy was unbelievable.
Yes.
Any fight fan and any boxing purist, I think that's always a go-to in the books, right? But yeah. I can see the reflection of what you're saying about your career, really. Because, let's be honest, you've had your ups and downs.
Absolutely.
Within your career, but you've always bounced back, and you've always give entertaining fights. So I can see that mirrored, within your career.
Thanks. That makes me feel great, actually, because it's something that I really admire about him. And it's I think one of the hardest things in boxing is actually knowing whether you're a resilient person and whether you can actually come back from a loss or a defeat, and mentally how you deal with that. Because not everybody can do that. Like, some people go 10-0, then suddenly take a loss, and they really don't know what to do. They don't know whether or not they're able to they don't want to get back in the gym. They don't want to come back and fix things. It really floors them. And it's something I learned a lot about myself. I've had losses in my career, but I didn't come into the career to finish something 0. I came in to see just how far a small girl from Luss could get in a boxing career starting late on in her 20s. And yeah, I've surprised myself when I became world champion. That was an amazing night for me and definitely exceeded some expectations. But the next time I win a world title, it'll be purely because of my skill and determination and hard work. And that's what, is exciting for me. You rebuild, you learn from your mistakes. You can't always win. And then you've got to come back again and showcase how you've learned. And it's if you've learned is the important part. I think that's what Gatti showed as well. He took things away, came back, did new things, but it was always exciting. So yeah, that I really, definitely feel akin to him.
Most definitely. I think through your journey as well, it's about, I heard somebody say during COVID, be easy on yourself, because there's so many people what are really hard on themselves, and especially athletes when they take a loss. But it's not just boxing. It's not just combat sports. It's life, right? Yeah. The combat sports sector is so parallel to life. We all get ups and downs, and it's about how you bounce back from them losses.
Exactly, and I think if you are a resilient person or you practice to be more resilient. I think we all work on it. It's actually something that we all encounter every day, how we're going to respond to certain events and, things that don't necessarily go our way and things that are going to push you out of your comfort zone to do different things or respond in a way you wouldn't normally have responded. That's building resilience, because as a person, you need to know, how you're going to respond in a stressful situation or when things don't work out the way you want them to. And I think boxing is a very harsh reminder of that. It's either win or lose, or a draw, but that's not very common. So yeah, it's one way or the other, really.
Most definitely. We're going to move on to round 3.
Seconds out. Round 3.
And this is probably, a great lead on for what we're talking about, ups and downs. And this is a big one. I know that you've had some, as we said, some sort of low points in your career as such. Them losses are never easy. No. And also, what Andreas, our producer, noted was that in 2017, when you was challenging for the WBA super middleweight title, you was actually relegated to the walkout bout on the PBC card, which was your time to shine. And I suppose that wasn't too sweet. No. Despite being the only title fight on the card. I mean, that's absolutely horrendous in my opinion. But absolutely. What do I know? I've only been promoting for 24 years. But that must have been a down point. But what is Hannah Rankin's biggest fight she's had to overcome in life?
So, for me, my mum actually got diagnosed with cancer when I moved down to London to do my masters. And this is before I'd started boxing. I was doing some Thai boxing in Glasgow for fitness. But when I moved down to London, I got involved with boxing. And unfortunately, it was a very aggressive form of cancer. And 6 months later, my mum passed away. So she never actually saw me box. She'd never been at any of my white collar fights or any of my pro fights. But that was probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to deal with, is being able to function in normal life and deal with the grief of losing my mum. And actually, it's where boxing played a massive part for me, because I suddenly had something that wasn't associated to my music, because music was what my mum and I did together. So I was trying to study a music degree as a master's, but obviously I needed time out from that, having to deal with my mum. It was just really painful for me. So boxing kind of provided me with a different little family in the gym and an outlet for frustration, anger, and it was the only way I could tire myself out so much that I couldn't think about things. But now that's probably why I've pushed myself to achieve so far, because one, my mum has always expected me to, put myself forward for things, and if I intend to do something, do it to the best of my ability. But also, boxing was there for me at a very hard time, so I'm always about giving everything back to what was there for me when I most needed it. So that's definitely one of the hardest things I've had to deal with. I'm still not dealt with it, because it's not something you ever deal with fully, but it's something that drives me, pushes me to be the best that I can be. And also, I always know that when I do my ring walk, my mum's there. She's there with me, right by my side. She'd be the loudest person in the stands shouting. And she'd be the first person to criticize things that I didn't do well enough, because she was my biggest critic. But she'd also be so proud of where I've got to from nowhere, really, in this sport. So, yeah, that's probably the hardest challenge for me.
Amazing. I mean, it's kind of hard for me listening to this, because I know the story, because if you're listening to this and you don't know, Hannah and I go way back to actually the early days of Anna walking into a gym. And as I say, this podcast is in the lead up to 25 years of Fighters Inc. promoting. But myself and Derek Williams, former heavyweight champion, used to do a white collar boxing show and called It's On. And one day, this Scottish girl walked into the gym, and it was like, who's this? And as you say, Hannah, you know, we had a very tight family at Gym Box, you know, around the boxing classes with yourself and Noel, who is still your coach now. Yeah. We had a great crew down there, sort of training, you know. We used to even spar with each other back in the day.
Yeah, we did.
it used to be great, but I'm just talking a bit of history there for myself. But it's, you know, I know the story, but for the listeners, tell us a little bit about your mum. Let's talk a little bit about your mum, and in terms of how she was as a person and how that's reflected in your career.
So I think my mum is probably one of my biggest inspirations as a human being, because she had me when she was 21. She moved from England up to Scotland to take over a farm with my dad, and at 21 years old had me. Had my sister at 22, and by the time she was 23, the third one was on the way. So she had 3 kids under the age of 3. She was running a brand new business on the farm. She was working on the farm. She was making sure we were all fed, taking us to school. She took us to all of our extracurricular clubs. Like, I never wanted for anything as a kid. We weren't wealthy, but my parents made sure that I had opportunities to go and do things that I wanted to do. Like, you know, but she always had this thing where she said, if you're going to do something, you're going to do it for 6 months, because then, you know, then you really know if you want to do it or you don't want to do it. You've got to apply yourself. It was never just a passing phase situation. But when I look back on it, my mom was a superhero. Like, the amount of stuff that she managed to do. And I had a fantastic childhood. I never, you know, I always learned everything on the farm. I had an outdoor background, but then also I was pushed in school and I was encouraged, and my mum was always there to do things with me. So yeah, for me, she was definitely a hero. And also later on in my life, when I started to go to uni, because my mum was so young, but she basically became my best friend. So we were really good friends. She used to come to all of my concerts in Glasgow when I was studying there. She was the first person to tell me what was great. She was the first person to tell me what was shit. You know, you need that. Like, and I lost my best friend and my biggest critic and my biggest supporter all in one. And that was probably one of the hardest things for me. And my sisters would probably say the same. As like, me and mum were really close because of the music connection. She always wanted to play the French horn, and she picked it up when I went to university. So she played cello and piano already, but she picked up the French horn, so she's very talented. And we used to play in a local orchestra together in Helensburgh. So some of my most fondest memories are going to orchestra or coming down from Glasgow to meet my mum in Helensburgh to go and do orchestra, catch up with her. She used to book all the players to come and play in the orchestra. So all my friends knew my mum, and they were like, your mum's so cool. But she was just really young and kind of close to our age. So it was really nice. And one of the coolest things she did was go back to study. When I was at university, my sister went to Australia. My mum decided she wanted to go back and do a degree. So she did the music and English literature degree, which she passed with flying colours. But she absolutely nailed it. But just an absolute natural talent, and somebody who's given everything to her 3 daughters and then went back and actually did something for herself, which I know she was incredibly proud of, and we were really proud of her for that. So a really good role model, and someone who wouldn't let any shit go past, you know, like if you weren't pulling your weight or not doing enough work, she'd let you know about it. And but also they're really supportive when I was achieving things, and very proud.
Great. Sounds a bit similar to yourself, Anna, as I know you. No, it's great round 3. We're moving into the championship rounds now for MMA, not for boxing. For MMA, we're going into the championship rounds.
Seconds out, round 4.
And we're going to keep on the subject of music
Yeah.
And obviously you know a little bit about it, because I suppose you've done your masters, you've done this, you've done that, you've performed around the world.
Yeah.
What is, and don't lose the audience here, Hannah, because obviously you're classically trained. So let's bear in mind what the audience is, you know. I don't want to hear some classical name which I don't know about, or some bassoon player which nobody's ever heard of. What is Hannah Rankin's biggest musical inspiration, and why? Obviously it can be a classical name, of course.
Okay, so non-classical.
Yeah, let's do two. Let's break it down into two.
Okay, so non-classical probably has to be Beyonce. She's an absolute legend, and that is somebody who knows how to perform. Like, that is what impresses me the most. Like, it's just insane. You don't get singers like that. You don't get people like that as much these days. Just such a dominant figure on stage, huge personality, huge voice, but somebody that also actually used to suffer with performance anxiety and used to get super nervous, and she had like an ulterior persona to come on stage and things like that. So just an amazing musician, amazing performer, fantastic entertainer, and someone that's just full of life. And that's what music's about. Music's about being able to draw people in to want to be part of what you're showing, part of what you want to tell them. I was always told as a musician, I wear my heart on my sleeve, and Beyonce's like that. It's all out there for you to see, love it or hate it, and I love that about her.
Wow, you've shocked me with that one. What's your favourite Beyonce track?
I can't pick one. I can't, because there's so many different things. This is when I get geeky about stuff, you know, because there's so many things I like the backing tracks and the moments. So I'm not going to do that. But yeah, all of the stuff. I love all of the stuff. Brilliant.
Do you want to know my favourite Beyonce track?
Yeah.
He's Drunken in Love with Jay-Z.
Really?
I think it's a great track. I'm not a fan of Beyonce, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm a very big fan of Jay-Z.
Yeah.
But I think Drunken in Love is an amazing song when you're tipsy at the end of the night and you can sing along to it.
Absolutely.
At a wedding or something like that. I think I've been to a few sort of family gigs where that's been played, and it's like, you know, at that time it was yeah, special track.
So classical.
Well, you're going to completely lose me here. I mean, I can talk about R&B and hip hop all day.
Well, so a little insight into my classical music sort of loves. I'm a massive opera fan. I love opera because as a musician, I get to hide under the stage in the pit. That's where the opera orchestra goes. And then there's some magical story happening above that the audience are enthralled with, but we get to create the magic from hiding underneath. I will always love to perform in opera. It's one of my favourite things. Plus, we have some amazing rep for that as well, solo-wise and everything. So for me, probably classical music inspirations are it's a toss-up between the Metropolitan Opera Orchestra and the Royal Opera House here in London. Whole orchestras, yes, that's more than one person, but they are fantastic at what they do, and they create some amazing magic just from hiding underneath the stage. So those people are probably my biggest sort of musical inspirations.
Right. Well, you've completely lost me on them ones then. I don't know. But saying that, I actually went to, you might be impressed by this one. I went to the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra.
Yeah, the Royal Philharmonic.
And I watched them. I actually watched them perform live with David Rodigan.
Nice.
And that was at the Royal Albert Hall. I watched them at the Royal Albert Hall, and also I think they done the theatre just across the South Bank.
Oh, the South Bank Centre, basically, the Festival Hall.
Festival Hall. Yeah. And the atmosphere was amazing.
I've actually performed there. One of my favourite places.
Doesn't surprise
actually.
me.
I really enjoyed it.
That venue is amazing.
Yeah, it's so great. It's
Yeah.
From a musician point of view, like acoustically, it's really enjoyable to perform in.
Yeah, it's a great venue, and I actually looked at that venue around about 4 years ago for the 10K Karate Clash.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because one of our one of the athletes actually who competed for Jamaica to qualify for the Olympics, former English fighter Alton Brown, actually used to work for the Royal Festival Hall. And it was a toss up of going there or the Troxy, and but the dates didn't work at the Royal Festival Hall. But it's an amazing venue.
No, it's really, really cool. Great place to play.
Yeah, real good. But I will do my research and I'll have a listen.
Okay.
It's funny actually because Bisping. I've mentioned Bisping twice on this show. He's going to think I'm stalking him or something. But I know you're a fan and you've met him. Funny enough, at the UFC Gym UK launch back in 2018. But he listens to classical. He's got some. He's got a certain classical artist which he listens to, and he really likes it. There you go.
I think sometimes there's a time and a place for classical music, and for me, it's never when I'm in the gym. But when I'm having my own personal time, then it's time for classical music.
Yeah, I sneakily put like classic FM on now and again.
Yeah.
I don't know what's being played. I haven't got a clue.
Yeah.
But we'll have to talk on this another time, and you have to educate me a little bit. Brilliant. So round 4.
Talking
Go
about
on.
classical music, you're the person that gave me my my ring name. My ring name, the Classical Warrior.
I'm blushing. See,
that has
another fun fact.
Yeah, that has stayed with me, and it's been my ring name for the whole. The best ones are always given to you, whether not like nicknames. It's the same as nicknames. The best ones are given to you, and that one just perfectly sums me up, really. So yeah.
Well, it sums you up, and it's got, you know. Obviously, I'm from a martial arts background, and it's got a martial arts connotation to it as well.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, I'll take that one.
You take that
people.
one. Thank you.
I give. If you didn't know, I give Hannah Rankin a classical warrior name. Right, round 5.
Yep.
Seconds out. Round 5.
Let's get rid of the classical music because I haven't got a clue what I'm talking about. In last question, championship round. We're talking about corner teams, and this is about life, really. We want Hannah Rankin to name her top three people who would be in her corner for life.
For life.
For life. Who and why? Hannah Rankin, talk to me.
Top 3 people that I know.
3 that you know. They can be here right now. They can be past.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had some weird names thrown at us. I mean, Dapper Laughs said that it was Lee Evans. Okay, he wanted Lee Evans in his corner, which is, you know, he was inspired by Lee Evans.
Yeah.
Mauricio Suleiman had Pope Francis and Nelson Mandela in his corner.
Nice. That's good.
You know, I mean, we've gone from family members to the Pope, so it's a real mixed bag. But we want to know what your corner team in life would be. Your top 3 people in life to be behind you and why.
Okay, well, the first one is already in my corner. Noel Callan, my current trainer and one of my best friends, and someone that's been with me through everything. I started my boxing career. Also a good friend to my family, and we just get on very well. And somebody that helps me believe in my abilities and enables me to be good at what I do. Even if I'm doubting myself, he always believes in me and gives me the tools to achieve what I want to achieve. So he's definitely going to be in the corner.
So number 1, we have to note these down as we go. Noel Callan.
Yeah.
Let's talk a bit about Noel.
Okay.
Another class UFC gym coach down at Woking, if you didn't know.
Yep.
And a good friend of mine as well.
Yep.
I do love Noel. Even though I must say, Noel sometimes puts his foot in it, but that's what I love about him. Yeah. He's brilliant. He's so honest, and he's so real, and he's so passionate about what he does. You know, whether that's going shopping or coaching a world boxing champion. Yeah. Anything
he how it is.
He just says it how it. Well, not even how it is. What's in his head. Yeah. And I absolutely love it, and I love him. So I need to say that to Noel that I love his honesty, and I love his realness. And you know, watching your career, Hannah, it's also I've watched his career grow. Yeah. You know, as a coach, and probably one of the most honest people I know in boxing. Yeah,
that's one thing I like about it is that I would never be with a trainer or a coach that wouldn't tell me honestly how things are going. It's the same. I had the same sort of feeling with my music teachers as well throughout the years. I always had the person who was considered a bit of a hard ass and the one that was really tough on people. But I'd rather someone was honest with me than blew smoke up my ass about something and told me I was great when I wasn't. And sometimes that doesn't mean that you take it well all the time. Like, obviously, me and Noel definitely have our tips, definitely. And I definitely think that's also a female fighter and male coach thing, because, like, we definitely have our full-blown, like, arguments. But then, you know, we're cool afterwards. But it definitely, it's good to have someone that's honest with you, you know? And you need that.
You know it's constructive, and you know that it's real, and it's from a good place.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Number 2 on your list.
So, number 2 on my list. Clarissa Shields.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So, if we go back, you and Clarissa Shields wasn't the best of friends.
Oh no.
there was some friction there.
Absolutely.
Big shout out to Clarissa, actually.
Yeah.
I believe she's going to be on the FightMad podcast.
I think so.
In the weeks to come. You wasn't the best of friends. Now you are the best of friends. Tell me about that, your fight and the journey and why.
So the fight came about because I was a sparring partner for Christina Hamer at the time. She was meant to be fighting Clarissa. Then Christina got sick and nobody else wanted to take the fight. And I was like, why not? Why does no one want to take the fight? Because how are you going to know how good you are if you don't go up with someone who's claiming that they're the best, the greatest woman of all time? So I was like, well, I'll take the fight. And then I could see Clarissa and I had nothing in common that I could see at the time. I was just like, she thought I was some country bumpkin from the middle of nowhere in Scotland, and I thought she was this crazy girl from Detroit in America. I was just like from Flint, Michigan, and I was like, I know nothing about you. Like, we have nothing in common. You're argumentative, you're loud, you're aggressive. And then I was just like, you know, we're just chalk and cheese. And as the fight progressed, it was a fantastic build-up to a fight because we genuinely disliked each other. She said she was going to knock me out in 4 rounds. I said, you've never knocked anyone out. So it's all that sort of stuff. You know, we had a big build-up towards the fight, and it was a genuine dislike. And that sometimes adds something to a fight, you know? It always adds that little bit of needle and makes it exciting to watch. Then we had 10 rounds of war. And when I look back on it, that fight was probably my real sort of baptism of fire into the fight game at the top level. I was going in against someone who was a 2 times Olympic gold medalist. She won multiple world titles. And I was going in there, this kid from the middle of nowhere in Scotland. And I was just like, bring it on. And I learned a lot about myself. I learned how to speak in the public eye. We were getting beamed around the world for the press conferences. I learned how to have a stand-up press conference live in front of people, you know, and how I reacted to that under pressure. Then how I reacted to Clarissa under pressure in the ring. And I would say, like, you know, when I look back on that fight, it's one of those weird experiences. Like, when we finished, we were still going at each other after the bell. And it wasn't until after that fight where I started working with her manager, Mark Taffet, and I was signed with Dimitri Salita with Salita Promotions, both Carissa's promoter and manager. We were on the same card later on in Detroit. We were going to be fighting. And we did some sparring in the lead up to that. And Noel and Mark Taffet were like, Noel said to Mark, are you sure you want this to happen? Because I don't really think they got it all out there in the fight. And are you sure? Because they both got fights coming up. But after those 6 or 7, 8 rounds or whatever it was in the 5th Street gym in Miami, after that, we were like, that's it all out. And I could really respect her. And we suddenly realized we had quite a lot in common about like our determination, our drive, our discipline, our goals, what we thought about women's boxing, how competitive we both were. So yeah, we've been really good friends ever since.
I know you're very tight,
Yeah.
and it's a great story.
Yeah.
It really is, and you know, any combat sports brings people together.
Yeah.
You know, I many years ago, you know, my main adversary in karate, we're still the best of friends today, you know, and we hated each other from 14 to 22.
Yeah.
You know, and we love each other, you know, and that's the beauty of combat sports, how it brings people together. And that's absolutely a lovely story. Third person in your corner, Anna.
Third person in my corner, Bruce Lee.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Talk to me about how Bruce Lee inspired you then.
I think
because that's obviously where it's come from. Because you didn't know him.
No, I don't know him. But I genuinely do think like he's had an impact on so many people's lives indirectly of martial arts because of what he embodies, his mental state, how he performs, his skill set and everything else. But a lot of people look to what he embodied as a person and his sort of mindset towards things to help them focus in completely other different careers. And I think that's actually fascinating, that someone can have that sort of impact throughout the world, but not solely in his own, like, just his field. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's probably why. And also just, I like the way he thinks about things, the way he approaches stuff. And yeah, I think he'd be a fantastic person to have in my life corner.
I think that's an amazing choice, and I'm actually shocked that you've said that. I'm actually sat in my office at the moment. A lot of people think that I'm sat in a broom cupboard here because I've just got the shutters behind me, but I'm actually at my office at home, and I look up and I've actually got 2 pictures on the wall from the Senny show in 2008, and they're 2 Bruce Lee pictures, which I'm going to send you.
Yeah, amazing.
And we was lucky enough to work with the Bruce Lee Foundation for a couple of years. Wow. And I actually met Shannon Lee, his daughter, and his widow Linda Lee, wow, and his granddaughter.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So cool.
And we done some work with them around Senny 08, and it was just lovely being around the family, which is a martial arts family. Yeah. And do some work with them. But I'll send you that stuff offline, and I'll also post it on our Fighters Inc. website as well.
Yes, please.
I will do that, and also, Anna, there's actually a great guy from martial arts, from kickboxing, guy called Steve Kerridge, who's a very close friend of mine, and he's actually the main editor for all the Bruce Lee books.
Yeah.
Around Europe.
Oh, okay.
So I'm gonna make sure I link you up with him, and get you a couple of books out, because Steve is like the biggest font of knowledge on Bruce Lee around Europe.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he's literally based up the road from me. He lives about 10 minutes from me, and we always catch up for a coffee and a breakfast, and
That's brilliant.
we talk about martial arts and boxing and so on and so forth. So I'm gonna make it happen. I'm gonna hook you up on a date with him.
Oh yes,
and we can talk about Bruce Lee. But,
yeah, I'll bend his ear off. I've got loads of things.
but that is, it's really funny that you've said Bruce Lee, because this podcast was inspired coming up to our 25th year anniversary, and I really wanted to have people on this podcast who I've worked with as well, and you're one of them people, and Steve Kerridge is one of them people, and we've spoke about Noel, and we've spoke about Class, UFC, Jim Woking. They're all about, you're all part of the journey for Fighters Inc. Over the last 25 years. And you've been an amazing guest. And I'm so pleased that we've had Noel, Bruce Lee, and I actually forget the second guest, the second name in your corner. Who was the second name? Clarissa. How can I forget Clarissa? Right. What's up next for Hannah Rankin?
So I'm actually currently in fight camp at the moment. I'm training towards my next fight on the 5th of November. I will be fighting for the WBA 154-pound world title on the 5th of November. And it will be here in London. Venue to be announced. But I'm headlining the first all-female card. So it's going to be a very exciting night of boxing, a real chance for people to see a showcase of women's boxing from debutante level up to myself at world title level. And that's with Fight Zone and Dennis Hobson. So very, very exciting times. I'm doing all the commentary and I've been watching the fights and I'm thinking, that's going to be me soon. It's going to be me. So 5th of November. That's what I'm working towards, to become a 2 times world champion.
Is that the 5th of November or the 8th?
The 5th.
The 5th.
Remember the 5th of November.
It's not a hard one to remember, and it's here in London.
In London, yes.
Right, okay, and the venue hasn't been announced yet?
Venue's to be announced shortly. There's going to be a bit of a press conference. My opponent's coming over. So, yes, it will be announced, and it's an exciting one. So I'm looking forward to you all hearing about it. But I'm gutted I can't tell you right now. But, yeah.
You can't. You're like gagging to say
I know.
but you can't.
But, yeah, no, it's going to be a big night, and, I'm going to become the new WBA world champion. I'm very, very excited about it.
I'm looking forward to that one, and it's actually funny because I had a conversation with Noel, your coach, about this. And do you know where I'm supposed to be that day?
Where?
Scotland.
Oh no! Really?
How about that?
No way!
Yeah.
I mean, the irony of being in Scotland is ridiculous.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to the FightMad Podcast, hosted by myself, Joe Long, from Fighters Inc. As we go into our 25th year anniversary, Hannah Rankin, it's been a pleasure to have you on. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, FightMad Podcast, and give us a follow at Fighters Inc. I will see you soon. Take care.